All right. Welcome everybody to the first session of the 2025 Littleton School District Annual Meeting. This is your deliberative session. My name is Chad Stearns, and I'm the school moderator. We'll go over the meeting information shortly, but for right now, would you all please join me with the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right, basic room setup and introductions. Most of you know, but we have an exit over there, restrooms. They're out this door and take a right. Introductions, we have the school board. Matt St. John is chair, Eric Antonucci, vice chair, Bill Gendro, school board member, Travis Howard, school board member, Greg Cook, school board member. For administration, we have Steve Niles, the superintendent, middle school and high school principal, Al Smith, middle school, high school assistant principal, Melissa Jones, Lakeway principal, Crystal Martin, Lakeway assistant principal, Melanie Harkless, director of teaching and learning, Kristen Moreland, director of operations and technology, Dale Pryor, Above the Notch Community School District, QG Gallen, CTE principal, grant writer, Rochelle Cox, business administrator, Patricia Brown, and then Jeremy Brown, the president of the Littleton Teachers Association. And of course, we have Mike Elwell, school counsel. A lot of people go into making tonight, and elections in general happened. Just a thank you for those that helped set up the room, our school staff, our school clerk, supervisors the checklist, ballot clerks. Thank you everybody for your help in making tonight a success. As I mentioned earlier, tonight is the first session of the 2025 school district meeting. The second session, the official ballot voting, is Tuesday, March 11th, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Littleton Highway Garage. Tonight's session is the legislative session. You, the registered voters, are the legislative body. Hopefully you've all checked in if you're a registered voter at the front table to get your voting cards. If not, you can go see Roger and Peter. We're here with a specific purpose, and the only purpose to discuss the posted warrant. I'll read each warrant article, someone from the school will present, and then we'll be open for general discussion. You, the voters, may exercise your right, if you choose, to question, deliberate, or amend warrant articles. Once discussion is done, you will vote to move the article onto the official ballot for voting day. When all articles are voted on, that concludes our meeting. Amendments must be submitted to me in writing that I can read. If you can, please do so ahead of time if possible. Littleton registered voters are permitted to speak tonight unless permission of the legislative body is given. Voters again should be checked in. If you're not a registered voter, you're permitted to listen and observe, but you do not vote, but you can speak if approved by the governing body. Is there anyone that would like to speak that has not come and seen me to get their name on the list yet? Right now, I have a list of non-residents that are requesting that they be allowed to speak tonight. Patricia Brown from Guildhall, Vermont, Rochelle Cox from Whitefield, New Hampshire, Jeremy Brown from Monroe, New Hampshire, and Mike Elwell, school counsel. Is there anyone else that would like to be added to that list? All right, do I have a motion to allow these people to speak tonight? We have a motion from Matt St. John. Do we have a second? Second from Bill Gendro. Is there any discussion on those names? All those in favor of allowing those names to speak at tonight's meeting, please hold up your yes card. Thank you all for that. Those people have been granted permission to speak at tonight's meeting. All right, as you can see, we've got a microphone there for the crowd to speak to tonight. School board and myself will speak at this microphone. Please go, and we'll go one at a time. When you're speaking, please state your full name and your town of residence. If there's a vote to end discussion, we'll have anyone in the commute is permitted to speak. If you'd like to speak numerous times, please just be courteous, and if there's someone else that hasn't spoke, please let them speak first. Please, just the moderator or the person, if there's a direct question, about a specific item, that person speaking, make your point, be respectful of others' time. No personal attacks, let others speak. I don't think anyone will break the rules, but, please, you'll be ruled out of order if you do. Do it again, you'll be warned. If there's a continuous issue, you may be asked to leave, but I don't think that's going to happen. We should be able to do this in one session. I didn't ask if there was a makeup date. I'm kind of concerned if we need a makeup date for 7 articles. As a body, you do have the right to restrict reconsideration on any article after we voted. And right now, I think that's it. We don't really have any historical housekeeping. So with that, we will start on to Article number 1, which is to elect school district officials, the school board, two for 3 years, a moderator, 1 for 1 year, a school district clerk, 1 for 1 year, and treasurer, 1 for 1 year. All right, we'll just put that on the ballot, as there's really no amendments or action that can be taken on that. That's there for statutory reasons. Article 2, the operating budget. Shall the Littleton School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth in the budget posted with the warrant, or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purpose set forth therein, totaling $18,509,000. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $18,649,510, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Littleton School District or by law. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Majority vote is required. Recommended by the school board, 3-2. Recommended by the advisory budget committee, 7-0, with an estimated tax impact of $14.78. I'm here to discuss that is Matt St. John.
Thank you very much. Just before we begin, I was asked to make a public service announcement about our superintendent that we not hold against him the fact that he's a Chiefs fan as we deliberate this evening. So thank you for taking that under advisement. I do want to address a couple of things head on before I get into detailed comments. The first is that you've no doubt noticed that the school board voted 3-2 on this budget. And so, as to not leave you in suspense as to why that was, as we talk through the particulars, I want to share some detail there. The primary reason for the split vote was due to one particular line item where 2 members of the board disagreed in principle with a particular program. In this case, the program in question is the teacher residency program that's currently in its 3rd year. This budget that's being presented allocates $100,000 to this program, with an additional $100,000 in matching funds that would come from the Crouching Mountain Foundation. For the first 3 years of this program's life, funding came through federal grants that are no longer available, so this is the first time that the board had to make a decision or a recommendation as to if and how to include this program in our budget. And so we can get more into that topic and discussion later, if you'd like, but I bring it up first simply to point out that the 2 no votes from the board are best interpreted primarily as objections to a line item that amounts to 0.5% of the budget and shouldn't be considered as wholesale objections to the entire budget. And if you'd like more detail and commentary at the end, certainly those board members who voted no will be able to speak for themselves and add any commentary or perspectives. That having been said, the second thing I wanted to address up front is the math. Obviously, we take the budgeting process very seriously and our obligation to be good stewards of taxpayer resources. We know that people are hurting, that property taxes have already increased considerably this year, and we see and feel and have those increases as taxpayers too. That's also why we elected to remove the Lakeway new construction project off of the ballot this year and to not even bring it forward in the session. We didn't think that we could be credible or responsible stewards of your resources and ask you to absorb that cost amid the constraints, both macroeconomic and tax, that you're already and we are already experiencing. So with that context in mind, this year, once again, the proposed budget, as the moderator said, is less than the default budget, this time by about $140,000. Once again, this year we had aimed for a level funded budget and came up just slightly short $139,000 short if you consider the budget without the warrant articles, and more than that, about $400,000 short if you include the additional articles, which we'll talk about as we get further on. Of that increase, more than half of that overall increase pertains to what I would classify as an absolutely essential, absolutely mission critical, and absolutely fair agreement with the LTA, which Travis Howard is going to walk you through because that is what is article. For additional context, it also does include a reduction of 3 positions, 1 administrative and 2 teachers, and we anticipate an additional administrative role being dropped through attrition in the coming year, so those numbers may well increase. The projected tax rate of the budget being proposed tonight is, this math gets confusing for me as a newer board member, so I'm trying to walk you through it as I had to understand it. So follow me here, but it's 11.6% lower than the projected tax rate that was presented last year. So it is lower than the default budget. It is lower than what you supported in March of last year. But the projected rate is also, at the same time, 10% higher than what was actually assessed last year. Why the difference? Revenues and aid could come in lower than they have, which we can't know for certain, and which could result in the board having less money to return to taxpayers to offset that burden. So when you voted on a budget in March of last year with a particular rate associated to it, the board essentially was able to buy down that rate by returning unspent funds to reduce the tax burden, which we have done consistently and hope to be able to be in a position to continue to do if expenses and revenue and funding allow for it. In the last 3 years, just as context, we've returned just shy of $2 million, 1.9 to be more precise, to taxpayers. I want to also address that inflation plays a role here too to help you contextualize how the budget is or isn't increasing year over year. We had looked last year with 2024 numbers at budgets going back at 5-year increments. And if you look at our budgets in 2000, in 2009, and 2014 and adjust those numbers for inflation using federal data from 24, the budget we're proposing tonight is 6% less than the 2000 budget, 17% less than the 2009 budget, and 13% less than the 2014 budget. All that is by way of saying we recognize that this is a significant number, but we think it's a significant number that is being tightly managed. To come in consistently under the default budget, to be keeping pace or being underneath inflation despite all the additional regulatory burden and obligations that we have to provide education and administrative services in town, I think speaks to the seriousness with which the board and the administrative team take on that obligation to be good stewards of taxpayer resources. With that, maybe a couple more thoughts, and then we'll see if we can answer whatever questions that you might have for us. I want to address up front that I was here for a small part of the town deliberative on Monday, but it was too long and the room was far too hot for me to miss closely monitoring that situation, as well as changes potentially to funding at the state level in Concord. So there's nothing that's happened in either city at this point that impacts our perspective on this budget or the numbers of this budget. Is, in my estimation and in the majority of the board's estimation, a wonderful program that has served the town and the students and taxpayers extraordinarily well. With those $100,000 that we have added to this budget for your consideration, we'll get essentially 4 well-qualified, full-time staff who will serve in classrooms either here or at the elementary school, essentially facilitating as co-teachers with classroom teachers. These are students that are pursuing higher education at Plymouth and come here for a residency program. So we're able to get, for the cost of $100,000 to the taxpayer, 4 employees. So from the majority of the board's perspective, that's an incredibly good bargain. We've heard extensively from past participants of that program. We've heard from teachers who help support the resident students in that program. We've heard from administrators who help oversee that program in public session of board meetings over the course of the last several years. You can certainly go to our website and find those and hear those debates as you'd like. The feedback from them has been consistently positive and trending more positive year over year. It's in its third year. There is some unorthodox components to the program, which I think took some adjusting to, but I think it's been a really creative solution for the town that has helped us to get some incredibly well-qualified people to help serve our students, and we've been able to retain some of those folks as well. You are probably aware, if you read the paper or just involved in conversation, that districts all throughout the North Country and really everywhere are struggling to find and retain teachers. That might be a central part of the discussion when we get to the negotiated LTA agreement. And so having what I would call unorthodox programs like this one that allow us to bring in talent, showcase the district, allow us to try people out and people to try us out in return, I think is very smart, and I would submit to you that it's something that we're going to have to do more of year over year as we continue to try to address the challenges of filling teacher shortages. So that's the budget. That's some comments on the headlines of the budget. Again, the detail is in front of you. I'm going to go run over there and grab my details because I left them over there, and then if you have any questions, we'll take them.
Einstein from Littleton. I have a couple of questions about the budget.
Yeah.
I guess the first one would come to is under general administration, it just says other school board and has $189,000. What, I mean, it just says other. I don't like the other, just means it's like a slush fund.
Patty, can you speak to that, please?
I'm looking at the proposed budget on, says 2025 MS-26 proposed budget. This is line 2310, parentheses, 840, close parentheses. It's under general administration. I'm sorry, it's not the, it's not the 840, it's the 2319, 2310 to 2319.
So 2310 through 2319 are school board salaries, district clerk salaries, board secretary, treasurer, checklist staff, checklist salaries, legal expenses, annual meeting expenses, district audit, board travel, board insurance, district insurance, advertising, supplies, and membership dues. So it's everything pertaining to the board.
So I have a question. So the school board is a paid position?
Yeah, so there are 5 positions. Each board member gets $2,000 a year. The chairman gets $2,500.
Okay. And the other question I had was, you talked about dues to professional organizations or?
School board association.
Okay.
And for context, the New Hampshire School Board Association helps to keep school boards regular with policies as they need to be updated based on new legislations that's passed both in Concord and in DC.
Okay. The next question, well, the next question I have is, if you combine the general administration, which is a school board function, along with the executive administration, that is 1/3 of the entire cost for the year. It sounds to me like it's a little top-heavy. I would hope that the emphasis would be on the teaching stuff.
I'm just trying to find what line you're referring to as executive administration so I can best answer your comment.
Executive administration is 2320, 2320, 2400, 2500, 2600, 2700. It's right below general administration, at least from the copy I have.
Yeah, I would invite other members of the board to speak. From our perspective, I would say we obviously agree with you that the priority needs to be what's happening with instruction in the classroom. I will say one of the things I've been amazed by as a board member is the amount of, how do I say this? The amount of regulatory burden that we have that has to be managed and managed well. So those professional services and those administrative services, while it's easy, and I totally understand looking at them as potentially superfluous, I would suggest that the district would have an extraordinarily hard time fulfilling its legal obligations without those critical professionals and without those expenditures. I will say, in just the 4 years that I've been here, I think we've seen a reduction, or we're anticipating at least a reduction in 3 positions at the administrative level. And I think that's been in part because you've seen, one of them represented here, as I mentioned. I think that's in part because you see an interest on the part of the board of making
Increase for this year over last year in that area.
Yeah, I'd have to, we're looking at different documents, but
I'm
yes.
sorry.
So it could be any number of things driving it. It could be salaries, it could be retirement, it could be health insurance, it could be any number of things, but it's not an increase in positions.
Okay. The next one is, for me, it's the next one after that. It's non-instructional services, 3,100 food service operations. I don't know what all the food service operations includes, but I mean, given the current economy and the expected economy going on this next year, I'm concerned if kids aren't getting enough food.
Patty, can you speak to that, please?
Yes, the food service budget actually has gone down, and that's based on our contract with the Abbey Group. And we have very strict federal guidelines that we have to follow, so that they're.
I'm actually concerned that it went down, because I want to make sure the kids are getting what they need to get. It's not,
Right,
you know.
they're getting what they need to get, but we also have to follow the federal guidelines.
Yes.
We get reimbursed.
Yes.
We earn revenue off of those expenses that you see. We do receive revenue for reimbursement from the
But
federal
even if the
government.
Fed doesn't give us enough, if we need to, a little bit more to feed the kids adequately, this is particularly in, I guess, Lakeway, right? This is their growing time. It's also the base of their basic education. They need to have their brain cells working.
And I will say too, I've seen over the course of the last 4 years when there are essentially debts that are racked up in the food service program, the board and townspeople have come forward, right? Have been, I think, extraordinarily charitable in making sure that those situations are addressed responsibly and humanely. And I think it's been the case for the reasons that you rightly point out, that the board has, when it's needed to, or the district has when it's needed to, gone over and above the federal guidelines to make sure that students are fed, and I wouldn't anticipate a change in that posture.
Okay. I guess my last question is really, I understand, I look at the 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, you know, all the different kinds of programs, right? Regular, special, vocational, other, non-public, but we don't have that one, adult education. And of course, we have out-of-district people involved in some of these activities. Is the tuition that we are charging for all of those things where we have which could even include the regular stuff, I guess, for some students, but certainly the vocational and the adult education, is it, you know, obviously they might be paying for the actual teaching costs, but what about amortizing some of the additional costs of having a classroom? You know, all those other things. I just want to make sure that they're paying their fair share so that the school district doesn't bear a burden for people having these options to do things. I mean, you know, it's
Sure.
nice to have, but particularly adult education, I'm like, depending upon what it is, it's not absolutely necessary.
Sure. But Patty, can you speak to how we set what goes into the process of setting tuition?
Well, the adult ed would be Rochelle. I can speak to CTE. That is based on our current tuition rate, which is based on our cost per pupil. And if they come for 1 or 2 courses, it's either 25% or 50% of our tuition, based on the number of classes. And then we get to add 25% to several $100,000 a year.
Again, I'm not worried about the overall money.
Yeah, she's making sure that the tuition cost for people includes the administrative cost. It isn't just
Oh,
instructional
that's
cost.
Particularly for the people outside the district. They need to pay their fair share so that it's not falling upon the Littleton taxpayers.
Great question.
Yes, and CTE has a capital reserve with $390,000 in it that we do use periodically to buy
That's for equipment.
and things. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think that's my last question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Curly.
Hi, Heidi.
Quick question about the residency program.
Yes, ma'am.
Since it started 3 years ago, correct? How many residents have we had so far?
12,
12?
13, 11?
And how many are employed now in the district?
2?
2?
Yeah.
So I don't see where that's rewarding to the district.
Yeah, I would argue it's a good point. It's a topic of debate that we've had a lot. Other board members can share their perspective where it differs, but in mine, I mentioned the retention of 2 because I do think it is an important component of the program, but what I've said consistently and on the record is I would still be in support of the program even if that number was 0, because we are getting essentially 4 full-time employees for $100,000, right? Fully loaded, everything else, all expenses considered, and I think you're going to be hard-pressed to go find a full-time employee with benefits fully loaded with those credentials for $25,000 a year. So mathematically, aside from who we retain or don't, I still think it is a good bargain. I still think we're putting great people in the classroom with great teachers to help serve students. I think it is an added benefit, serendipitous when it does happen, if it does happen, that we're able to find people who've come in through that pool who want to remain up here in the North Country and remain employees of a district.
So we're going to ask $100,000 for how many years?
This is for
program?
1 year. This is a 1 year
I
budget.
know, 1 year.
Yep.
But next year too, and the year after, when we only gained 2 employees out of 15 in the last 3 years, when the homeless population in the district is very high and we're paying their housing.
Yeah, I would
How do you
say.
explain that?
So I would say year over year, what we're going to do is to be determined, right? So I can't stay here and say, yes, it's going to be 100,000 every year, or it's going to be 200,000, it's going to be 0. I don't know. What I will say for this year is, I think the reality is if we struck that $100,000, we'd need to add 4 positions. And those 4 positions would come in, or at least would have a discussion about adding 4 positions, and that dollar amount would come in a lot higher than $100,000. So to me, the questions about are we providing housing, are we doing unorthodox things, are secondary to the math, right? And the math, I think, from a taxpayer perspective, works out, right? From somebody who's interested in education, for somebody whose kids have been in classrooms with residents, for somebody who's heard compellingly from teachers who participate as part of the residency program, this is working for everyone. I understand that it can make some people uncomfortable. I get that and I respect that. But on all those points, I continue to be in favor of the program, and so long as I remain a member of the board, I will vote in favor of it.
The other question on that is it just special ed for the residency program, or is it regular, like
I'm going
third
to
grade,
defer to
fourth
the
grade
superintendent or the director of
teachers?
teaching and learning for that.
It's just special education means the residents are getting a master's degree in special education.
Okay.
That's the partnership.
And what is the average rent per student or college student?
I'm not sure.
Do you know? 1,400? And that includes everything? Okay. So, and you have how many in the district? 4? So, and you've had 15 and you've only hired 2. And these are just for 1 year?
Correct.
So every year it changes as a student, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So the turnover is every year?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, because they're,
So
they're
no
student
stability.
residents. Yeah, I mean, they're not a classroom teacher position, so the stability component is valid, but I think it's less of a concern, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. This is Neil Reinstein again. You said that they're not classroom teacher positions?
Yeah.
Then what, I mean, I'm like curious as to what they're doing.
Yeah, what I meant by that, I'm sorry, is that they don't they don't teach a class by themselves. They are
So they're
paired
co-teachers.
up. Yes, they're
Okay.
co-teachers. They're paired with a classroom teacher, and they are working sort of under his or her direction and in partnership with them.
So my other question is, you mentioned talking to the teachers.
Mhm.
Has anyone talked to the students? I mean, some of the students may not be able to communicate, exactly what they think about it, but some of them hopefully can. And do they find it beneficial?
Yeah, I will say that one of the things we're trying to correct about the program, by the way, is that the placement of the residency teachers, has been almost exclusively at Lakeway. So we don't tend to hear a lot from the elementary school population. I will tell you anecdotally that my son this year is in a class with a resident, loves the program, loves having her there. But no, we've not in any holistic way gotten feedback from the elementary school population, but we have talked to teachers, administrators, and participants in the program.
So what is the number of students on average in these classrooms?
Crystal, Al?
15. But they help you finish sometimes more. There's 15 in the home.
So there's 15 students in a room with one teacher in a normal situation, and this gives you a second teacher, and these are special education students, for whatever their special education requirements are.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other discussion on the article? All those in favor of placing it on the warrant as presented, please hold up your yes cards. All right, thank you for that. On to Article 3, Collective Bargaining Agreement Teachers. Shall the Littleton School District approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Littleton School District and the Littleton Teacher Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level over those paid in the prior fiscal year? Fiscal year 25-26, estimated increase $262,624. 26-27, estimated increase in $253,251. 27-28, estimated increase of $251,243. And further, to raise and appropriate $262,624 for the current fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board 5-0, recommended by the advisory budget committee 7-0. Estimated tax impact of 30 cents per thousand. And up to speed that is Travis.
So this is the agreement that we came to with the Teachers Association. This is the first time in 6 years that they've had any increase to their base pay. They've had zero increase to step one the last two terms. The first year, it is a 4.5% increase. The second year, it's a 4.3% increase. And the final year, it's a 4.1% increase. What that equates to is in year one, it's a raise of $1,925. Year two, the same. And year three, $1,930. That would change the current step one base that we have now of $41,220 at the end of the 3 years to $47,000.
You seem to be losing teachers to the nearby.
Can you just state your name?
Okay, I'm sorry. Svetlana Paley, Littleton, New Hampshire. How much, where are you percentage-wise to the salaries of the schools in the area? It does seem that you have lost some teachers to Whitefield over the years.
Patty may be able to help with that. That's one of the main reasons we really wanted to put a lot of the focus into the step one. So that way it's every teacher gets a raise when some of the teachers haven't had a raise in 6 years.
Well, I'm asking is, yeah, but you're losing teachers. So my question is, are you where the salaries are for all the areas around? Because if you're not, you're going to lose the teachers again.
And I think when we looked at that, we were probably somewhere in the middle as we sit today. I think there are 7 other school boards and teachers association in negotiations as well. So we won't know how they change theirs until their towns vote. But again, that's one of the main reasons is we're trying to stay competitive in the area so we can retain
Is
the
there
best
some-
teachers for our
Is there
students.
somebody that can answer the question of where you are, near, let's say, like you lost teachers to Whitefield, so where are you in terms of salaries compared to them?
I think Jeremy Brown may be able to help.
Jeremy Brown, LTA President. So to address your question, we actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, started off this school year fully staffed. Is that correct, Al? More or less, we were fully staffed. And, you know, being the LTA president, member of the executive board, and having, you know, knowledge, you know, networking with the other organization presidents across the region, this new contract will help us keep our competitive edge and put us at or a little bit above many of the regions around us, many of the towns around us. And again, like I said, there are still ongoing negotiations which could change that, but for the most part, it will be beneficial to where we stand, you know, competitively. And I do want to remark that, you know, at the beginning of this year, for those of you that probably know that the White Mountain School closed, and there were a couple of teachers that actually came over from the White Mountain School and joined us, you know, in Littleton as teachers, which was a great benefit to us as well. So, additionally, with the contract, I just wanted to thank the board's negotiating team, Superintendent Islas, Attorney Elwell, Patty, for, you know, having a congenial and an efficient process. What's that? Yeah, board's negotiating team, right? Yeah, Travis and Mr. St. John. So I think that this contract will do what it needs to do to make sure that, you know, we can stay focused on meeting the needs of our students. And you know, I think, you know, we have the consensus of the membership behind us, and it should be good.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I'm sorry, may I ask another question? My son is asking.
Can you come up to the microphone so
I'm
everyone
sorry.
can hear you, please?
I'm sorry, my son is asking, then why are the salaries decreasing?
What was the question?
Right. Could you please come on, actually say the question? He wants-
So the total salaries in the total budget versus this budget, that's because we're eliminating some positions, we're consolidating some of the administrative positions, and so some of the at-the-top positions are being consolidated so that we can pay the teachers that are actually in the classrooms teaching our students the best we can. You're welcome.
All right, is there any other discussion on the article? All those in favor of placing it on the warrant as presented, please hold up your yes cards. Thank you. All right. Article 4, special meeting defeated teacher agreement. Shall the Littleton School District, if Article 3 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 3 cost items only? Majority vote required, recommended by the school board 5-0, recommended by the advisory budget committee 2-5. And I don't have the clicker, sorry. Thank you, though. All right, are there any questions on this article? Although, oh,
I have a question. And I don't know what's speaking. There were,
can you state your name, please?
Lilo Reinstein, in case anyone didn't remember it. There were 5 members of the budget committee that voted against this? And if someone could speak up, or if there was a general, reason why, or it was just everyone had a different reason?
We struggle to understand the budget committee, but I think or John's here.
Steve Kelly. Obviously, we all supported the contract. We think there's obviously a challenge in all areas in terms of salaries and training, retaining good people, whatever else. The no vote on the reconsideration is, as a matter of principle, I know myself, I figure if we can't sell it in March, we shouldn't be selling it in July. It kind of happens under the radar, so I think we need, if those of us who support it, we need to support it in March and vote for it in March, and then we don't have to worry about July.
All right, is there any other discussion on the article? All those in favor of placing it on the warrant as presented, please hold up your yes card. Thank you. Article 5, transfer from fund balance to district equipment. Shall the Littleton School District vote to raise and appropriate up to the sum of $50,000 to be added to the school district facility equipment capital reserve fund previously established in 1964, with this sum to come from June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1st. No amount to be raised from additional taxation. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board 5-0. Recommended by the advisory budget committee 7-0. Any discussion on this article?
Lilo Reinstein from Littleton.
For the district equipment is $25,000.
So you're using a lot every year, essentially.
Yes. And that's the purpose of this.
Right,
Yeah,
but the speed of, so you're buying kind of either little things or, just a few big things every year, I guess is what I'm getting at, right?
This is big things every few years.
Well, that's why it's kind of, because it's capital, I'm just wondering, obviously there's a lot of capital equipment, so it's, okay.
Right.
It just seems low to me.
Yeah, well, it wasn't, but we had to purchase a tractor recently, so.
Okay.
Health outdoors. We also use it for snow removal. The CTE program uses it, so they have a lot of equipment that moves in and out of the garage. The tractors use probably about almost 50% of our use is with CTE also. It's also used within the CTE program for teaching students about tractors, equipment, hydraulics, and the things that go along with it. So not only is it a piece of equipment that we use as it's intended to, but it's a learning tool for our students also. The tractor that we are in the process of replacing was 18 years old, and I think we were able to keep it running for 2 weeks straight this winter before it broke down again, and it was just time.
Well, you have a suggestion for the snow removal. You have school children. You can buy them shovels. Well, that's what I said about the heated sidewalk at the new school. I said you can just get kids shovels. And then they get, instead of gym class, they just shovel.
Interesting concept.
Heidi Hurley. I don't know if I should bring this up here or not. The district owns how many vans right now? Do we know how many vans? 3?
3?
Okay,
3.
and we use all 3 every day? We don't?
No.
And why? Well, it's equipment.
Well, are the vans purchased through the capital equipment reserve?
Not the ones that I purchased.
Oh,
Okay,
okay. So I can't ask.
correct.
I can't?
No, that's not germane to the subject.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? All right. All those in favor of putting the article on the warrant as presented, please hold up your cards. Thank you. Article 6, transfer from fund balance to district facilities. Shall the Littleton School District vote to raise and appropriate up to the sum of $100,000 to be added to the school district facilities maintenance capital reserve fund previously established in 1993, with this sum to come from June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1st? No amount to be raised from additional taxation. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board 5-0. Recommended by advisory budget committee 7-0. Bill will come up to speak on this one.
So this normally is a $50,000 request each year, and this year it is $100,000 because of expenses that we incurred. And we are trying to get our budget back up to where it is, because this gives us some cushions, obviously, when we have breakdowns that are unexpected, which obviously with the maintaining of the number of facilities that we have is important, and it speeds up the process to have that cushion that we have. So that's why this year we are asking for $100,000. If we have a good year next year, we would go back to asking for the standard $50,000. Any questions?
What's the balance, excuse me, Lilo Reinstein, what's the balance on the current, well, on the fund?
65,000.
65.
Yep.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor of placing the article on the warrant, please hold up your yes cards. Thank you. All right, Article 7, to extend clerk, moderator, and treasurer term from 1 year to 3 years. Shall the Littleton School District change the terms of the school district clerk, moderator, and treasurer from 1 year to 3 years, beginning with the terms of the school district clerk, moderator, and treasurer to be elected at next year's regular school district meeting? Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board 5-0. Recommended by the advisory budget committee 7-0.
They just like to hear me. This request was brought to us last year to match what the town terms are. Typically, the same people are doing the same jobs. So we are going to take time to train everybody, so that's why we ask that it matches the towns, and we have to do all positions.
Are there any more discussion on the article?
Steve Kelly, a moment of levity. Does this mean that you've made it through your probationary period?
We'll see what the voters have to say, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Chad.
All right, is there any other discussion on the article? All those in favor of placing the article on, please hold up your yes cards. Thank you. All right, is there any other discussion to?
I'm asking to open up the operation budget real quick. for
So
discussion.
you'd like to, you're making a motion to open up discussion on Article 2?
I guess, is that where the vans would be?
I believe that, hold on just a second, I just gotta check with council.
Sorry?
The vans have already been purchased, that would just be maintenance.
I have a couple questions about the vans. Yes, it is.
All right, so talking with school council, excuse me, the motion is to reconsider the operating budget article, which is Article 2. So that would be your motion.
Yes.
All right, do we have
We
a,
take 2 seconds.
do we have a second on that motion? We have a second on that motion with Steve Kelly. All right, any discussion on the motion to reconsider? All right, all those in favor of reconsidering, please hold up your yes card. Can you just still hold them up, please? Thank you. 1, 2, 3. All right, and all those opposed? All right, we will reconsider Article 2, the operating budget.
Yeah, I just have a quick question, because I guess I didn't say it in a timely fashion, I guess. How many vans do we have in the district?
3.
3. And we own them all?
We do.
And how many are used every day?
One is used every day,
Mhm.
and I don't know how often the co-curricular gets used. I think several times a week.
Okay.
Times a week.
All right. And what is the purpose of having 3 vans? in the district?
Well, they all have a purpose. At the time last year, we were transporting students, and we needed 2 vans. This year, it was actually kind of nice to have an extra van because we actually had mechanical issues with 1 van, so we had an additional van to use.
Okay, so we do use Myers Transportation still?
We do.
And what is the purpose of that if we have 3 vans?
The purpose of that was it would have been a full-time person. We would have had to hire a full-time transportation person.
And what is the cost for Myers per year?
$80,000.
$80,000? And the van per year sitting in the SAU parking lot for the year?
0.
Okay,
Everything's paid for, so.
I understand that, but we paid for the van, correct?
One was donated this past summer.
Okay, by who?
Project Mountain.
Okay.
Project Mountain donated the newest
Okay,
minivan.
all right, thank you.
All right, is there any other discussion on this article? All those in favor of placing Article 2 on the ballot as presented, please hold up your yes cards. Thank you. All right, is there any other discussion on the warrant to come before the governing body tonight? Seeing none, that concludes our 2025 first session of school meeting. And again, the second session will be the second Tuesday in March from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Highway Garage. Thank you.
Quick announcement. For those of you who've been coming to Littleton deliberative sessions for a while, Mike Elwell has been a constant presence. And this was his last deliberative session as he's announced his retirement. So I just want to, I've worked with Mike for the time I've been here, and many in this room have known him much longer than that, but I just want to thank you, Mike, for your support of the school district and support of the staff and, helping us make the best decision we can to educate kids. Thank you, Mike.
That concludes our night. Thank you all for coming.
Well, thank you for keeping my seat warm.
They got rid of a